How's it going, everyone? We are going to start a probably 2 or 3 part series with this one. We are going to be going over Typhonian Teratomas, which has some pretty mixed reviews. I'll just say that. Some people aren't happy that it's only about 30 pages. Some people aren't happy that you have to potentially have a copy of the Shadow Tarot before you read it. Some people don't like the authors, but I like some of the tips and some of the information that they give. So we are going to go over it. I think we will probably read, the first 15 pages, I think. So, yeah, let's get into it here. First of all, this book is, let's see, it's published by Black Moon Publishing, but the author is listed as Mishlen Linden. But then in the back of the book, it says that Mishlen Linden and Louis Martinet potentially both worked on it, especially due to the nature of some of these rights. It seems like a lot of these workings were interpersonal, we'll say. But anyway, let us get started. Keep in mind, all of this relates to Crowley and Grant's work. We're running through the cycle of these poets and artists, and then we're going to get into some other methods. But the whole tradition of the Qliphoth and the Qliphoth tends to run very Crowleyan, especially these days. So I want to cover that, and then we'll get into some other methods. Okay. The table of contents in this one shows that it doesn't run over all of the cards or paths. It only goes through 13 of them, unless I'm mistaken. The paths that they chose are very specific paths, and they chose them for a reason. Perhaps something to meditate on. All right, the first section is titled In Reverence to the Ancestors. The cards we use here are talismans. They are indispensable for the workings contained herein. Without them, the realm of the Qliphoth will not be opened. I'm going to keep reading. It was Aleister Crowley who first commanded these sigils, or sigils. The images are from Liber CCXXI. I believe it is CCXXXI, actually. And the colors from Liber 777. Kenneth Grant furthered essential knowledge, and recently Linda Florio has painted a set of images based on the information provided and the wisdom and intuition of the artist. For the purpose of these workings, you may either choose to make your own sigils or obtain her deck and related book. There is a chart here that I will show, which relates to the paths and some correspondences there. Can I get a straight picture? Yeah, there we go. Take a screenshot of that if you like. I'll even move it back so you can make it a pretty one. Then we have the wheel with all of the glyphs or sigils of the night side. I'll move this back so you can take a pretty picture if you want, but then I'll move it in so that you can actually see it. Okay. Moving on. Introduction. They use the word magician or magician or magican. I'm going to pronounce it magician or maybe even just mage. Yeah, deal with it. The mage is one who stands in the path of power. To be a mage is to know and recognize that power. This book is an entrance to one such path. By standing in its center, one acquires access to its current. It shall wash over and become part of you, and you will become transformed thereby. Then there's a quote from The Ring of Fire by Lawrence and Lorne Blair. Everything has its opposite, up and down, day and night, good and evil. If we can integrate these opposites, then we share the strength of both in our lives and our art. We must stand with our feet equally planted in both worlds. Only in this way can one have the full energy of consciousness. Sun and moon. Those of you who are not into solar workings, as it were, remember the moon shines not without the sun. Up until now, our Western magical community has looked into the faces of our gods of light, but not into the faces of our gods of darkness. What is this darkness? Simply put, it is our inability to see what we have thrust aside. The darkness is our own. There's a lot of, you could call them opinions in this book, but useful perspectives are used in this book quite frequently, so keep that in mind. They need to become balanced. The need to become balanced grows. When one is blind to a force, one gives that force the power of control. Outbreaks of violence and hatred are the uncontrolled vestiges of these forces. They are powers out of place. Dion Fortune writes in her book, Moon Magic, of the black Isis transforming into the white Isis. I believe this to have some relevance regarding the shells of the Qliphoth. It is said that these spheres were created first, primeval, and were unable to contain the light, and then broke. I postulate that they did not indeed break, but that the human link to them was shattered by the age-old oppressor fear. We became unbalanced in the presence of such power. Then we, through our fear, created out of that wayward energy those horrors of the mind which only fear can create. As Dion Fortune has said, we need to go beyond these fears to come to the white Isis, the purity of the primal knowledge from which we have cut ourselves off. The shells were considered evil, as was woman, evil-like unto Eve. And so that power was given a feminine form, and cut off from the rational and patriarchal mind of mankind. Women and shamans have held this power in silence throughout the centuries. When both light and dark trees have been integrated, then may we all be truly free. The goddesses in these cards are hermaphroditic. They will take the form of male or female depending on their function with the practitioner. A polarized being will attract its opposite. As this polarity closes, so will the sexual differentiation. Male mages using these cards will develop their feminine Shakti energies through union with these goddesses. Female mages will reunite with their severed potential power. With their severed personal power. The soul is ultimately androgynous. To call these goddesses, one must first interest them, lure them, seduce them to you. One must look sideways, between the universes. Trance states facilitate this. Those who call directly and wait for something to happen will not be answered, for the answers will go unheard. Our personal atavisms are the magical links which will call these greater ones. Deep answers unto deep. To them we offer our sacrifice. There's an old Latin phrase that I was running over in my head, abyssus abyssum invocat, deep calleth unto deep, or deep Deep answers unto deep. I digress. Sacrifice is the movement of energy from a lesser individual source to a greater, more universal one. Burning incense is its common form. From the moment a plant is picked, prana begins to leave its being. If a plant is fresh, it is not necessary to burn it. Eastern rituals which offer flowers to the gods exemplify this. If, however, the plant is already dried, burning it will further release its power. This, you may notice, is the scientific process of breakdown. Sacrifice is our lure. Another of its manifestations takes the form of sound. As we breathe out, light, prana, is expelled. This light contains our personal power. Various types of forms are created through the different mediums we choose to use. Some of these mediums are chanting god names on specific notes, the hiss of Dahomey, song, Tibetan overtone chanting, and the white noise, pink noise, sound of the winds of space. Techniques for these will be dealt with later. Other sounds include the drum and the Tibetan bell, as well as tingsha. With each word we speak, we emit a part of our power. Useless chatter whittles away at this personal power. Practices of silence for various periods of time rebuild our reservoir of prana and reveal the folly of chatter. In time, each word may become a spear of light and will, striking to the heart of its target. Such is the word of the magus, or magus, or magus, like mother goose. We utilize the process of mantra, yantra, and tantra. Love it. Our yantras are the cards and sigils. Our mantras, the sounds with which we lure. And our tantras are our rituals. We combine these in the creation of our link to the gods. They are our winged messengers. If the images we use within this book shock or frighten you, that is to the good. They are supposed to. Besides the general heightening of awareness that we all know comes in panic, P-A-N-I-C, panic. Man, panic. You could almost put an I-C-K at the end of that as well. There are certain auric responses which take place in the presence of fear. Certain auric responses take place in the presence of fear. Very useful information. One of these is the appearance of holes within the general shrinking body envelope. Into these holes flow the very things of which we are afraid. Nature abhors a vacuum. This can be used effectively when performing initiation upon another mage. In such a way does fear call forth the very thing of which it is afraid. The phenomena can also be seen in the trials of the newly awakened mage, who sees spirits reaching out from every darkened corner. As fear slowly dissolves, or dissolves, I believe it's supposed to be dissolves, but D-I-S-S-O-L-O-V-E-S, dissolves or dissolves, so do the manifestations of the entities. The primary method used in the tarot rituals and meditations herein deals with the transference of attention. Under normal conditions, our minds flit from one subject to another, and only superficial knowledge of any subject is obtained. Attention can be moved like an eye to see that which is often unseen. When one concentrates upon the hand resting up on the book, one feels the book and the hand simultaneously. And holding one of the shadow tarot cards or Typhonian sigil, you may transfer attention from the hand to the card, and then into the card. Visions may be obtained directly in this manner. A good method of practice in this is to lay your hand upon the lower chakra, or chakra, and enter the chakra through the hand. Then one by one continue up your body, noticing the completely different forces that each chakra contains. Colors and images will arise spontaneously, with visions of the lower chakras being more brilliant and visions of the higher chakras more ethereal in nature. Magic lives spontaneously in nature. It is nature. As humans, however, our minds interfere in this natural process. Besides lack of concentration, there is another problem we often run into, this being mind locks. A mind lock feels like running into a wall. We stop. There seems to be no apparent reason. Sometimes these locks are placed upon us by our spiritual guardians for safety's sake, but more often they result from a particular inability to see ourselves within a new context. A meditation to overcome this is as follows. Close your eyes and see your mind in terms of size. Spend time exploring it. Note its width and depth. Go to the boundaries of your mind and observe where it begins to fade away. Where it fades is where the other begins. Touch the other, then move into it. It is now a part of you. You have extended your consciousness. This process can go on and on ad infinitum. As the boundaries of the mind enlarge, so does one's sense of self. Access to temple space is useful in our work. Although power can be built from the ground up with each rite, it is simpler and far easier to have a place which remains empowered between rites. Our temple is like the womb. In darkness and silence, the power continues to grow. If dedicating a room is impossible, use a closet for your workings. It is important to keep the temple in continual darkness. Sunlight dissipates the energies with which we are working. Only dim candlelight should be used, and many rituals can be performed in total darkness. The temple is the material and reflective dwelling place of your soul. What occurs within your soul is reflected in your temple, and the astral atmosphere shall change as you change. While you are performing ritual at another location, the temple's aura will be simultaneously reflecting the experience. If your consort or mate cannot accompany you, he, she may have the very interesting experience of attending the ritual in your temple, where, with very little effort, one can see the changes taking place. Conversely, by building up power and making your inner contacts within the sacred space, you enhance and extend your spiritual self as this power becomes a part of you. Movement in the temple should be slow and steady, as if one is moving through water. This allows the mage time to become aware of the changes taking place in the astral menstruum and promotes fuller consciousness. Our astral world conforms to certain laws of nature. Magical ecology deals with the position of the mage on the food chain. Hunger is an ancient biological imperative. At any given moment, we are either eating or in the process of being consumed. My stomach growled right after I said that. The eater is defined as one who consumes power, thereby becoming larger. The eaten is consumed. This power, in both cases, may take the form of another magician, deity, or elemental spirit. The eater's movement is toward a state of ever-increasing largeness. That which initially was, grows in its ability to do work. As more work is taken on, more food is required. The process is toward ever greater complexity. This is the growth of consciousness. This is the movement towards the all. The eaten becomes one with that which consumes, and so, in the end, there is little difference between the eaten and the eater. The name magician, or magician, is synonymous with those who eat. The mage commands all things by bringing them into the web of the self. The movement of the eaten is toward nothingness. The power of the eaten is the power of the mystic, that of dynamic passivity. Dissolution, and the emptiness which accompanies it, is the mark of this path. The eaten's weight is given to the eater. Karma and ego are jettisoned into the maw of the voracious eater. That which eats takes on energy to do the work. That which is eaten becomes one with the work. The eater must digest what is taken in. This is transmutation. Here is balance reestablished. Power is integrated into the whole. Inertia, the tendency to remain in a fixed condition without change, and entropy, an increase in degree of disorder within a closed system, are the stumbling blocks of the eater. The mage's work lies within their realm, while the eaten and its acquired nothingness can manifest in a limitless dance of creation. Life proceeds from the void. Here is the dance of polarity. Here is invocation. Those parts of you which are empty will move towards completeness and the calling forth of the appropriate entities of the cards. In the end, there is no difference. By virtue of being, we move to enlarge ourselves. Eventually, satiated with the consciousness of our universe, we become all and nothing. From nothingness, life is born, and the creative urge is once again reestablished. Brave are the souls who look beyond society's values in the search for their own. Braver still are those who plumb the depths as well as the heavens. Those who persist find they are one. The Paths of Night is a tour of the primal. Each card is a new world, opening upon the dreams of atavistic consciousness. The cards are methods of an ongoing process in the naming of the primal self. They exist for those who feel the irresistible fatal pull of the forces of night, calling from and to the depth of their being. The entities involved are as ready as we are for communion, COM-UNION. We are far larger than we think we are. Come and embrace us whole. That is it for the first video. We will get into the workings next video, is what the next section is entitled, the workings. Thanks for listening in, joining along. I hope you have a great rest of the day and a great rest of the week. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. Please leave them below or email me as always. And yeah, we'll hope to see you in the next one. Take care.